What's poppin', people? It's your main man, Manley Miller.
And it's the king of Clearview himself, Javier Acosta.
This is Quarantine Cuisine.
Come get spiritually fed while you stuck in bed.
Celebration Church, Kenner Campus Podcast.
What's good? Pastor Manley, how you feeling, baby?
Hey, I'm doing good today. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Hey, I challenged you on Instagram to a push-up challenge.
I ain't see that.
You ain't see that?
Nah, how many I gotta do?
25.
Oh, I got that. I'll do that when I get home. Yeah.
Okay, all right. The fans will be looking for
All
it.
right, 25 push-ups. I got that.
But you got to do them with all your kids on your back.
Bro, if I put Jack Hayden on my back, it's going to break in half.
All right, Pastor Manley, I want to read a couple of facts.
All right.
On anxiety and stress, all right?
All right.
Check these out. This is what I found out thanks to Google, all right? Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the U.S., affecting 40 million adults in the United States ages 18 and older, or 18.1% of the population. Over 43% of all adults suffer adverse health effects from stress. Somewhere between 75 to 90% of all physician office visits are stress-related ailments and complaints. Stress is linked to the 6 leading causes of death: heart disease, cancer, lung ailments, accidents, cirrhosis of the liver, and suicide. And the Occupational Safety and Health Administration has declared stress a hazard of the workplace. This is one I read today. A recent meta-analysis indicated that approximately 5 million deaths worldwide are attributed to mood and anxiety disorders each year. So here's my question, and here's the title for today's episode. What's worse, coronavirus or anxiety?
Are they mutually exclusive, or doesn't one cause the other? That would be my question.
I guess, I don't know. You tell me. What are your thoughts?
Man. First off, can we just talk about what is a meta-analysis?
It sounds smart. I feel like that makes it official. I'm not really sure what it is.
It can't be wrong if it's a meta-analysis.
If it's a meta-analysis?
Wait. Was this a regular analysis?
Yeah.
No. This is a meta-analysis.
You put meta in front of anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's like, we having meta worship services this weekend. It's like, it's going to be a meta sermon.
It's a meta message.
A meta message.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Meta-analysis. Man, I'm going to tell you what. All I know is the coronavirus done brought out the anxiety. You know, I mean, I was just talking on a chat with Michele, our life group's coordinator, and we were talking for her life group leaders meeting. We were just talking about how all of the life group leaders are stressed out trying to use technology.
Yeah.
And I just left my house, and we got the 4 kids, everybody like from kindergarten to 9th grade doing school online. We don't have enough devices for this. We don't have enough people for this. It's like everybody's stressed out.
Yeah.
The anxiety is through the roof, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody's on edge. Everybody's like mad at each other. Everybody's frustrated.
Oh, absolutely.
My computer ain't working. This ain't working. I forgot my password.
Yeah.
You know, Sammy's in kindergarten. They got assignments for him. It's like, if Johnny's got 13 apples and Billy's got 17 apples and he gives Susie 3, what's the square root? It's like, what? This kindergarten math? What are we doing right now, man? And so I think to answer your question, right, it's like probably stress.
Yeah.
Probably stress.
Yeah.
But I would certainly think that this quarantine from the coronavirus has probably increased the stress. I mean, I find myself looking at NOLA.com multiple times a day. I'm looking at all the international news, channels multiple times a day. I did the math today. I was like, what happens if we don't slow down the spread of coronavirus, like the number of people that get it? It's like, man, all of these things, my stress and anxiety is going up. I'm on edge.
Yeah.
I'm feeling all of that pressure, and I'm sure everybody else in the world is. You're on edge about whether or not, I literally went to like 10 stores to find bread the other day.
Yeah.
I ended up at the Dollar General.
Hey.
Buying some bread. They had
You should
bread.
have gone to the Latinos.
Oh, I bet you I should have.
You could have gone over there.
Man, you got to find the off-beaten path store. That's what you got to do.
What you got to do, right. But the point is,
I'm stressed out.
You stressed out?
I'm stressed out. Anxiety's through the roof. I think everybody is, right?
Everybody,
that's
right?
a natural place we find ourselves right now.
I'm at home saying stuff to my wife, and I'm blaming the coronavirus. I don't have it, but I'm blaming it. You know what I'm saying? Because the anxiety is so high.
Yeah.
My Wi-Fi went down today. I didn't know how to operate in life. I was
because
like,
your only lifeline to the
Yeah.
world was Wi-Fi, and now that's
I'm
gone.
over there. I spent about 30 minutes disconnecting my modem, connecting my modem, disconnecting my modem, just sweating. Nothing even wrong, right? Because I'm anxious. I need it to work. I need this to happen. And I think that that's how we kind of get into this feeling of, I need this to be over.
Yeah, the phrase my counselor uses, we'll talk about this a lot, is you get on the top of the box. Right? Like you on the outskirts, you know what I mean? You holding on. And the technical term is hyper vigilant, right? Like you become like so aggressive and like you'll start to notice your reactions.
It's kind of like fight or flight.
Yeah, but it's the fight part of it.
Right.
It's not even the flight part.
Yeah.
It's like it's the part where you're so aggressive and you're so like, man, you just worked up and you feel this pressure and you're responding. The situation's a 2.
Yeah.
And your response is a 9 or a 10.
Yeah.
And nobody's patient. You lose your patience with one another and everything. You feel the anxiety. Like, I don't know about you, but when I get anxious, man, I feel it like my blood is hot
effects
in my skin, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When I'm stressed and anxious, I always notice afterwards my neck is tight, my shoulders is tight, my body everything's just tight, right?
Yeah.
And here's what I've been thinking about lately is the coronavirus, this pandemic will end and it'll pass, but anxiety will still be there, right?
Yeah.
You think that the day it's all done, nobody's going to be anxious anymore?
I think, well, of course not. And the question I've always asked myself is, why is it that we have more material possessions, nicer lives? You know what I mean? My kids were watching the old Karate Kid movie, which you probably like too young to even remember. I'm talking about like Daniel-san, the crane kick, you know, Cobra Kai, the sweep the leg Karate Kid, you know, Ralph Macchio.
Yeah, I'm too young.
Yeah, I know you are. And the opening credit to the movie's rolling, and they're moving, and they're going from like the East Coast to California. That's like the opening of the movie. And dude, they get in the car, and it's like the oldest station wagon. It's like olive green station wagon that they traveling across the country in. And he's got this Schwinn bicycle and all of this stuff. And I'm going, man, our lives are so much better today. I mean, we got nicer cars. We got sleep number mattresses. Like you can have your sleep number, you know?
Yeah.
And we got scientific pillows and weighted blankets. And we got every creature comfort you could imagine we have at our disposal. And our anxiety is higher than it's ever been. How is that possible?
Yeah.
What you worried about? You have the best life that anyone in the history of the world has ever experienced.
Yeah.
I mean, your life today is better than the kings and queens of the 1930s.
Yeah.
You got air conditioning and you got, plumbing and you got, you go in the bathroom and you got 5-6 shower heads in houses now and all of this. And it's like you got hot water.
Yeah.
Right out the faucet, and you stressed out. Why? I think it's because I think it's the social media thing, right? Like, what was the one pastor I've heard you reference it before? You compare.
Comparison kills contentment.
Yeah, but it's that idea that you compare your behind the scenes to somebody else's highlight reel.
Yeah.
It's like you compare what you see and you experience, and you think that everybody else is having this like great experience, but your experience sucks.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, the truth is in today's coronavirus quarantine, all of our lives suck compared to what they were 2 weeks ago.
Amen.
You can't go nowhere. You can't. I was apologizing to somebody because they had to leave their house and it wasn't necessary. And they were like, brother, I'm so excited just to get out of my house. Like we cooped up, we on house arrest.
Yeah.
It's like we got all of these things going on. It's like, but you're comparing it. You're comparing it. And it's like, could you just take the moment where Dana and I were talking about this today. She was like, we don't have baseball. We don't have dancing school. We don't have church.
All the things that caused you a lot of stress.
All the things that made us busy. We don't have none of those things going on. And she's like, and we still, she was blaming, she was on me. She was like, you still stressed out. And she's right. And so I'm like, man, I got to figure out my anxiety and I got to figure out what it means not to worry. And I got to figure out what it means to have faith in the Lord. And I got to figure out what it means to let Jesus guard my heart and my mind in Christ Jesus. I got to figure out what that looks like because there's no reason to be stressed out and overwhelmed by things I have no ability to control whatsoever.
I think about Adam and Eve who, they had the fruit. They had everything they could have ever wanted, right? I mean, they were walking in relationship with God. They had each other. They were provided for. They were naked all the time. I mean, anything and everything, right?
And they wasn't worried about it. And they wasn't self-conscious.
But they had this thing that they thought to themselves, if I just had a bite of that, then I'd be happy.
Yeah.
Then I'd be content. I think right now I'm thinking that probably stressed them out for a couple of days, thinking about that. Thinking like, oh man, life is okay, but if I had this one thing,
could be more.
There could be more, and we all know the story, right? It didn't.
In some other Garden of Eden somewhere, somebody else has got it.
Yeah,
they ate the fruit and they got the full experience.
It's actually really good. And I think that's often what we do. We have all these things, but we're always thinking to ourselves, well, I just need that one more thing, and then I'll be satisfied. If I just had the car, if I just had the house, if I just had the career, if I had the girlfriend, the boyfriend, the wife, the husband, if I wasn't married to this fool, if I was, if I didn't have these kids, then I'd be happier. And it causes us anxiety because we want to solve the problem.
Yeah, because we think it's some external thing.
Yeah.
It couldn't possibly be internally within us.
Good. Yeah.
It's got to be some external circumstance. It's got to be somebody or something else's fault. And if I could just get that worked out, and it's that mentality and that idea that other people have it worked out.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's like, nah, it don't really go down like that. I mean, there's somebody with more money than you that's less happy than you. And there's somebody with less money than you that's more happy than you.
Very true.
And there's somebody who's married that's happier than you. And there's somebody who's single that's happier than you.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just not the situation. Maybe it's just not the circumstances. Maybe it's just your internal reaction to what the situation is.
That's good. Well, I know one of the things that you've talked a lot about doing as far as stress, anxiety, different things in our lives, I've done this as well, is going to see a counselor. And so we actually have a counselor who's going to come and talk to us a little bit about anxiety. Someone we both know. She attends our campus, great counselor, Michele Louviere. We're going to call her and have her come on the show and talk a little bit about anxiety.
Yeah, so let's talk to Michele and see what Michele has to say about some tools and some resources that we can do to kind of respond differently when we find ourselves overwhelmed, top of the box, hypervigilant, and needing some assistance. So we've got joining us Michele Louviere, who's a licensed marriage family therapist and who has a counseling practice, Refuge 182. Is that right? Is that the name of it, Michele? And she helps a lot of clients who are going through difficult things emotionally, mentally, helps people recovering through trauma. And, this has been a very traumatic experience, Michele, for everybody. We got the trauma of being quarantined. We got the trauma of the threat of a pandemic. We got a lot of other things stirred up. And what we've been talking about today is anxiety. So what I'd like for you to do is kind of talk to us a little bit about what people need to know about anxiety and what they can do at this time to kind of process their anxiety in healthy ways, both from an emotional as well as from a spiritual standpoint.
Okay, great. So, everybody is kicked up right now. Lots of anxiety, probably a lot around basically the uncertainty and the unknown of what's going to happen. So really what's happening right now is everybody is being traumatized at the same time. So, Manley, like you like to talk about, like people's brains are jacked up. And that's really what's happening everywhere across the world right now. So it's a very unique, unusual kind of time for everybody. And so definitely probably the most important thing that we need to be focused on is how do we help our bodies and our brains calm down? Because actually, if we stay jacked up for long periods of time, that actually does a lot of damage. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, etc.
So we're talking about mass global trauma. Yay! This should be easy, right?
Right. When we're doing like hurricanes, we can run from them, but there's nowhere you could go right now that you could go, all right, I'm safe.
Pastor Dennis mentioned, we was talking about, we went through Katrina, the cavalry came. Now, because this is global, there's no cavalry. Ain't nobody coming to save us.
You know what? The other piece is what we learned in Katrina was that basically the most important part of basically, helping people, with long-term traumatic response or traumatic issues is that we really need to come together and touch each other and hug and, connect emotionally and physically. And we can't do that right now in the same kind of way. So that's the unknown part of this, is that piece we know sort of calms people down, and we're actually telling everybody don't touch, don't, stay far away from each other. So it's definitely a new experience that we're not, we're all having to try to figure it out together.
Right. So how do we emotionally recover while being socially distant?
Yeah, that's the big picture. I mean, obviously there's a lot of talk out there about, ways that we're trying to stay connected. Church is doing a fabulous job of like setting up groups and, being able to do services online, trying to create some kind of normal in this really abnormal kind of place. So, certainly those things are helpful. I think that, the thing I'm most concerned about is like our singles, people who are like literally in houses by themselves. Like if you're with a family, you can still sort of touch and connect and all of that. But, I think that group is really at risk right now. And so anyway, it definitely is a difficult season. And we also, though, are really resilient. And I think that there are some unhealthy ways that we can cope and some healthy ways. So do we want to talk about that?
Yeah. So give us, all right. So for anybody before we talk about healthy ways to cope, can you just like define what anxiety looks like for a person? Like, how do they know they have an anxiety?
Okay, that's easy. So anxiety is going to look like, basically, first of all, you want to pay attention to your body. And so if you're feeling like your chest hurts or your head hurts, or basically you feel tense all over, like typically your body keeps score of what's going on. So your body will be the first place that you'll get some signals. So if you have a headache, or you're really like you feel nauseous, like you feel it in your stomach, those are going to be some of the first kind of clues that, man, I'm just feeling really anxious and my body's really kicked up right now. Then you're going to have
I thought that was coronavirus. That's not the coronavirus doing that to me?
Yeah. Doesn't that make it really fun, right? Right. So that same kind of symptoms that you may get with the corona is also. So everybody thinks they have the coronavirus right now because of the anxiety part.
I've only thought I had it 6 times today. I'm doing good. That's down from 12 yesterday.
You're improving. So the second thing is that like if your brain is basically like jacked up and you're just thinking thoughts and you're like thinking like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. I'm going to end up with a coronavirus and these terrible things are going to happen, and you can't sleep at night. And maybe, like you're irritable, or you're really like short with the people around you, or you want to isolate when usually you want to, sort of connect. Those are other kinds of symptoms of anxiety. So those are probably the big ones that I can think of off the top of my head. Oh, all right. Did I face trouble sleeping? Yeah, you can't sleep. Oh, and you can't eat either, because whenever you like have anxiety, whenever you're, that's triggered, your system like shuts down. And so, early on people are like, yeah, I don't want to eat anymore. And then later on, your anxiety could be like, oh, I want to eat all the time.
I was about to say, what does it mean if you're eating constantly?
You're probably anxious. Like that's one of those ways you're trying to like soothe.
She's like, it probably means you're fat. That's what it probably means.
It means you're going to have to buy some new jeans pretty soon.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Michele, one of the title of this episode is What's Worse, Coronavirus or Anxiety?
Oh, wow.
And that's it's the idea, right? That obviously we're not trying to downplay coronavirus, but at some point in time, this pandemic will end. But just because the pandemic ends doesn't mean anxiety goes away. And we read some statistics at the beginning of this about all the effects of anxiety. So just what are your thoughts with that in the long term of anxiety?
Well, that's one of the big lessons we learned from Katrina was that, certainly there was damage done by the hurricane and sort of the actual event. But the real concern is what happens when this thing is over with. And people who basically have sort of been living in anxiety for minutes, days, hours, weeks, months, they're at high risk for post-traumatic stress disorder after all this is over with, which is why it is so critically important right now to really try to be taking really good care of ourselves and purposely focus on ways that we can try to reduce anxiety right now. For one thing is that if you stay really anxious and you can't get your brain to calm down, your immune system is then compromised, which means that you're more likely to get the virus. So
right.
If anything,
So
the anxiety right
So you're saying if you worried about getting the virus, you're more likely to actually get the virus?
from a body and a trauma standpoint, right? Because your immune system is.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I notice when there's times where I don't sleep, where I'm struggling with anxiety and I don't sleep, I always during that season get sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. All right. So you said we got to take care of ourselves. So practically, what does that look like for the people who are listening? What does it mean to take care of ourselves?
Great question. So practically, like, there's a whole lot of things that we can do. The first thing is, let's just talk simple things first. Drinking water, sleeping, and breathing. Okay. So those are 3 critical pieces for reducing anxiety. So really that whole thing about sleep right now, and just like Javi, just what you said is that we really do need to be getting as much sleep as we can, drinking as much water. The breathing part, though, is very interesting because everybody's going to say, of course I'm breathing. Well, yeah, but what happens is that when we're anxious, we actually stop breathing. We're not breathing as much as we are, which literally hijacks the brain. And so when you start to feel your body like tightening up, your chest tightening up, head hurting, you want to do what firemen do, which is this very easy kind of concept called, sort of square breathing, which is you breathe in for 4 seconds slowly, you hold it for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold it, and then start over. Okay, and there's some variations of that, but it's basically about really like purposely breathing. Okay. So that's just a real practical thing to do, and you do that 3 to 5 times, and you literally can feel your brain starting to calm down when you do that. So that's one. Those are the real practical. Let's start real baseline. Then we go into the pieces about, I think what most people think is, hey, if I just don't think about this, I'm going to be okay, right? And it's actually the worst thing that you can do is just to sort of try to avoid, because people are going to avoid by, well, I'm just going to minimize it, or I'm going to watch TV, or I'm going to just, watch TV for 14 hours, or I'm going to basically just, run from it. I'm going to take drugs. I'm going to drink, whatever I have to do to avoid this. And the image I give people is like, it's almost like you are running from this wave, okay? And this wave is big and intense, and it takes so much energy to run from it that basically it would be way easier just to sort of stand there, hold tight to Jesus and people that you love, and then feel the emotions. Like, allow yourself to feel sad or scared, then to be able to have somebody that you trust that you can say, hey, I feel sad right now. And lamenting and allowing yourself to feel is actually an Old Testament concept that helps with anxiety.
Okay, lamenting.
There we go.
Somebody should name a book after that.
Remember, they used to sit in the piles of ashes and wail and tear their clothes, right? Which we don't do anymore. We're in a society which we do everything possible to avoid pain. And leaning into it and allowing yourself to feel it and going, okay, hey, I should be feeling anxious right now. I should feel a little scared. I should feel, uncertain. Those are normal things to feel, and allowing yourself to feel it, maybe go journal a little bit about it, but lean into it instead of lean away.
All right, so we got some practical things: drinking water, working on your sleeping, and your breathing. And you gave us the 4 square method: 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out, 4 hold, and then we talked about actually feeling it, not being afraid of it, standing in it, facing the wave. That's kind of the next level. Anything else practically you would give a person saying, all right, what else can I do about my anxiety?
So there's quite a few. Obviously, sort of limiting the amount of media that you're watching right now. Don't sit there for hours and, think about every news thing, because the media's job is to, they want to make money by us watching their shows. So, they're going to make it bigger and they're going to make us afraid. So take breaks. Super important to exercise, this is the time to get your body moving, because that actually will calm your body down. Healthy diet. Oh yeah, let's talk about caffeine and sugar.
Let's not. I'm just joking.
Why you got to get all up in the church's business like that, considering we put donuts and coffee out every morning? All right, go ahead.
Exactly. So the worst thing that you could do right now when you're feeling anxious is go drink caffeine and go eat things that have sugar in it. because those things
While
kick
you're
us up.
talking, Javi's drinking his coffee with sugar and cream in it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll move on, but I'm just saying it's like those things really like, if you got some vitamins, take some vitamins. Eat healthy if you can, right? Do some things that are going to basically like calm your body down, not egg it up. One of the things is, and I don't know, guys, if many people know about this, but there is this whole like sort of concept about being present and about learning how like trauma and anxiety wants us to go backwards and think about old things that have happened to us, or go forward and just be really fearful about what could happen, right? And so the best thing you can do is like learn this kind of I think it's a spiritual discipline about living right now, and being super present.
Okay, so just to recap that, the idea of Paul saying, take every thought captive and think about the things that are true and honorable and worthy and noble. The only thing that really is genuinely true that we know is the reality we're currently in, this moment. And so it's almost a spiritual discipline to go be present, so to go sit outside and to kind of take inventory, if you will, of what your current reality is in this moment. The sun's still shining. We still got oxygen. The trees are still growing. The birds are still singing. They're not worried. They don't have any anxiety. That's Matthew 6:30 now, in the 6:30s now. So we're talking about that. So we just got to really make sure that we stay present. We face the feelings that we have. We embrace them, sit in the pain if we need to, face the wave. We avoid caffeine and sugar, and we drink water, and we get some exercise, and we do some walking, and we have a healthy intake of media, and we make sure that we are breathing right and we're sleeping well, which the intake of media is going to help with, because if you don't have a face full of media for 2 hours before you go to bed, it really calms your mind down because all of the devices that you have. I think these are all some really practical steps that we can take, Javi, to really try to work on our anxiety.
Yeah,
And,
a couple other things real quick, is that basically the more positive and the more grateful you are, which I know you talk a lot about, and the more you laugh and connect, like those things do as well.
Now you talking my language, laughing. I like this now. That's my part of the equation. Yeah, that's the one thing I got healthy right now.
My plan is to take vitamins, but can I take it with my coffee? Can I use my coffee to wash it down?
You can do anything you want, Mr. Anxiety Man.
That's right. I'm not sure. I think that might intercede, and sort of.
Michele, thank you so much for coming on and joining us today. How can people get in touch with you if they need to? People are gonna have PTSD after this, so if they need some counseling, would you recommend them reaching out to your clinic?
Well, I think the thing is that certainly is an option. But the thing that I've done and I think might be the most helpful right now is I have a public page on Facebook that's called the Refuge 18-2. And my staff and I, we're like loading it up with positive kinds of coping strategies, things that can really help deal with anxiety that people are sort of dealing with. And my email is attached to that. So if there's questions, certainly people can sort of reach out and ask those questions as needed.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Michele, for joining us. We appreciate your time and your expertise.
Thanks, guys.
All right. See you later. So, great information from Michele.
Absolutely.
Super helpful, super practical.
Yep. I got a lot of stuff to work on.
Especially that coffee you got sitting over there.
It's gone.
He's like, let me get this last sip in before I got to start my new diet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely one of those things where I think you can just drift into this when things are going down and things are falling apart, getting crazy and chaotic. You kind of just drift into what's comfortable.
Yeah, and I think, with all of the tools she's given, I've had some of these conversations with her before. I like to look at it as you can be conscientious without legalistic. So even if you like, well, I'm not there, I can't get my morning coffee, I got to have my morning coffee. Like, you can be conscientious about your caffeine intake without having to be legalistic of cutting it out completely. Or you can be conscientious of your water intake, or you can be conscientious of eating healthy or exercising or whatever you're doing. Like, it doesn't have to be a legalistic thing. So a lot of times we think it's got to be all or nothing, but something's better than nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even if you just take some of these things and you put into practice some of them, that goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting ready to end off this episode, I want to ask you, Pastor Manley, what is your favorite scripture on anxiety?
Oh, well, you know, I mean, I'm a Philippians 4, 6, and 7 kind of guy. I'm a worrier.
Yeah.
I'm an anxiety guy. I'm high strung.
Uh-huh.
I'm always worried about everything. I've always had trouble sleeping,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, that's just the way God wired me. You know, my assertiveness and aggressiveness plays out in the way I think about things too. So I've always, for a long time, been a Philippians 4, 6, and 7 guy, because it says, don't worry about anything or be anxious for nothing, depending on the translation you use. But instead, pray about everything.
Yeah.
Tell God what you need and thank him what he's done. And then the peace of God that surpasses all or exceeds all or transcends
Yeah.
all understanding, all wisdom, will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. And, you know, your heart is all your anxious feelings and your mind is all your anxious thoughts.
Yeah.
And the peace of Christ will cover those things when you take your requests and you bring them to the Lord. And I've thought about it like this. You know, it's like worrying. If praying to the Lord is the opposite of worrying, according to God,
Yeah.
then worrying is literally like praying to yourself. It's just taking your thoughts and presenting them to yourself, but you can't do nothing about them, but
Yeah.
think about them.
Yeah.
You know, and so for me, that's my Bible verse, Philippians 4, 6, and 7.
That's good. That's good. I'm going to share mine. Is that all right?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Don't be coming out with nothing from Deuteronomy or like Leviticus 19.
I do have a new one. I think before this, it was Matthew 6:27, which says, who by worrying can add
Another day to their lives.
a single hour, a single day to their lives, right? And that really hit me hard, because it was always like, it's true. What good, worrying really accomplishes
Nothing.
nothing. But I read this scripture the other day, and I thought it was tight, and I think it's kind of my new favorite one.
All right.
Luke 10, verses 40 through 42, it says, Martha went up to Jesus and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister Mary has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. You are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken from her. And that really just hit me as I was thinking about this episode of anxiety, because she starts off saying, don't you care?
Yeah,
Lord,
like,
don't
ain't you
care?
worried? Ain't you worried, Lord?
Look at all this I got going on. Don't you care? And I think sometimes when things happen, that's how we can feel. We feel like, man, the Lord's forgotten us. He doesn't care. But that's the opposite of the truth, right? We know the Lord is for us. He's not against us. He's got our back. But then he says, Jesus says, Mary has chosen. And that's the thing to me, is I have to make the right choices when it comes to anxiety. Because not that you can choose. I think that when it comes to anxiety, people can be either proactive or reactive. When we're reactive to the coronavirus, to sickness, to isolation, to quarantine, anxiety is one of those natural reactions. Michele talked about that. It's natural. It happens. But when we're proactive, you can choose to make some choices that will help you overcome those things, such as the things we just talked about, right? And it's about those choices. And so not that those choices will make anxiety completely dissipate, but my hope is that we can choose to put the Lord first, to seek him first above all else, right? We know that verse, Matthew 6:33 and 34. But we choose to put him first, and then we choose all the other healthy options, because unhealthy choices never lead to unhealthy choices never lead to a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. I think that in hearing you say that verse, it makes me think, when you choose to be anxious, then you're not choosing to be with the Lord.
Wow,
because when you're with the Lord, there's no anxiety.
Yeah.
Because God's got this.
Yeah.
So whether you think about it like this or not, like you would never say, well, I'm choosing anxiety and I'm saying no to the Lord.
Right.
That's really what you're doing.
Yeah.
And he's saying, Martha, you've chosen to worry.
Yeah.
Martha thought she was choosing to serve.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, no, you're chosen to worry.
Right.
Mary's chosen the right thing, because when you with me, that's when you ain't worried about nothing.
Yeah.
And it's a mark. And so I think that's a great way to look at it. Great Bible verse.
Thanks. Well, let's go to our quarantine cuisine takeaway. What is yours for today?
If you don't do something about your anxiety, then you're in a far greater prison than if you have coronavirus.
That's good. I'm going to go with that one, too. That was pretty fire.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. What's worse, coronavirus, anxiety? We not doctors, so don't listen to us. But,
no, we not. We're just two jacked up dudes sharing our opinions.
That's it. That's it. But you can do something about both, right?
Absolutely. I'm not saying don't be afraid of the coronavirus or don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
I'm just saying if you survive it, but you're stuck with anxiety at the end, you didn't do yourself any favors. In Jesus' name.
Amen. This has been another episode of Quarantine Cuisine. We hope you leaving fresh and full. Be sure to subscribe on podcast and Spotify. You can also find us on Facebook, Celebration Church Kenner. See you next time.
Anxiety is up. Anxiety is up. What you gonna do when your anxiety is up? Anxiety is up. Anxiety is up. What you gonna do when your anxiety is up? Drink water. Go walk. Just breathe. Then sleep. You gotta do these things when your anxiety is up.
Oh, that was it?
That was it. That was the whole song. That's the whole song.
Oh, man.